Shakti sir,
Harshad sir.
please unmute and start reading. Shakti sir.
I will start the meeting and will request
Okay.
Shakti ji. So, good evening, friends. Dubey ji will come little late, and so Dubey ji has requested me to start the meeting. And the reading is today is a long article, and Shakti ji will read, and then we will start this dialogue. Thank you. Shakti ji, you can start reading. Shakti ji.
Shakti ji, please do come. His
Not
mic
coming.
is also not showing. शक्ति जी का माइक भी दिख नहीं रहा है.
Acha, I think today the Wi-Fi is not working very well here.
Your voice is completely coming perfect. Why don't you read it?
Okay, I will read. Okay, the title of this chapter is "To Think is to Be Afraid." ST explained that he had been reading something we had said and had been pondering over them. But he had found within himself a barrier, a rock against which he could do nothing. He had battered his head against it for some time, and he could neither break it down nor go beyond it. He despaired of it. He would like to talk it over, and perhaps we could find a way to break down this self-enclosing wall. He was an earnest man, a so-called intellectual with his conceits and self-satisfied conclusions, which revealed themselves at odd moments. He was unaware of them, but gradually, as we talked, he became aware of them, and on the instant, he wanted to rationalize them away. He was impatient for a result, and we pointed out that wisdom lies not in the end, but is gathered on the way. To gather wisdom, one must set aside the end, the result. Patience is necessary, not the greed of attaining a result. If there is passive awareness, it helps to discover the contributing causes that go to make up the self-enclosing walls. Patience is not a virtue to be cultivated, but without it, understanding will be difficult. Patience is not to be gained eventually, but rather is to be perceived deeply in the present. Without rationalizing it, without justifying impatience, be still now for a while to experience patience. Once one has experienced the necessity of patience, it will be implanted in the mind. Is it not necessary to understand the thinker, the doer, the actor? For his thoughts, his deeds, and his acts cannot be separated and studied. The thinker is the thought. The doer is the deed, the actor is the act. From the thought, the thinker is revealed. The thinker, through his actions, creates the good and the bad and is enchained by them. The thinker creates his misery, his ignorance, his strife. The painter paints the picture, this picture of passing happiness, of sorrow, of confusion. Why does he paint this painful picture? This is a problem that must be studied, understood, and dissolved. Why does the thinker think his thoughts from which flow all actions? This surely is the rock wall against which he has been battering his head. If the thinker can transcend himself, then all conflict will cease. To transcend, he must know himself. What is known and understood, what is fulfilled and completed, does not repeat itself. It is repetition that gives continuity to the thinker. Why does the painter paint this painful picture? There are a few main causes, and one of them is habit. Through habit, through repetition, through copy, the thinker thinks his thoughts, which bring ignorance and sorrow. Is not habit thoughtlessness? Awareness brings order, but not habit. Subtle tendencies bring about thoughtlessness. Why is he thoughtless? To think is painful. It causes disturbance. It brings opposition. It may change the course of one's actions, which may go contrary to the established pattern. To think, feel, to become aware may lead to unknown depths, and the mind rebels against the unknown. So it moves from the known to the known, from habit to habit, from pattern to pattern. Such a mind never abandons the known to discover the unknown. Realizing the pain of thought through copy, through habit, the thinker becomes thoughtless. To think is to be afraid. So he creates patterns of thoughtlessness. If the thinker is afraid, then his actions are of fear. He regards his actions and tries to change them. He is afraid of his own creations. But the deed is the doer. So the thinker is afraid of himself. The thinker is fear itself. The thinker is the cause of ignorance, of sorrow. The thinker may divide himself into many categories of thought, but the thought is the thinker. The thinker and his efforts to be, to become, is the very cause of conflict and confusion. The thinker himself is ignorance and sorrow. Then he asks, how am I to transcend it, to go beyond myself? Krishnaji says, sir, your mind is not silent enough to appreciate the problem, and yet you want to go beyond it before you have even understood it. The problem, if read rightly, thoughtfully, contains the answer. Again, if we may say so, there is impatience, and the greed for a result is not the answer. As we said, the thinker is ignorance itself, is fear itself. Does this mean anything to you, sir? Apparently, it does not, for you are concerned only with going beyond it. How can the thinker go beyond himself if he himself is ignorant? He must cease to be. Ignorance and hate cannot become enlightenment and love at any time. Ignorance and sorrow must cease to be. Then he says, how shall I set about it to destroy them? Krishnaji says, again, your thought is on a result, on achievement, on getting rid to gain something. Now, please listen. You have not felt the shock of realization that the thinker, the you, is in himself the poison. Whatever he wishes and does will be poisonous. Why is it that you do not feel the shock of this realization? Either because you do not think that the thinker, the you, is poison, or you are numbed. You have agreed all along that the thinker is the thought, that they are not separate, that they exist together. If on seeing that mountain, you do not respond to its beauty and you realize that you do not, then such a realization will give you a shock, will it not? Similarly, when you realize that the thinker himself is ignorance, you are not startled by it. You pass on to other things. You have made yourself shock proof by your reasons, explanations, decisions, conclusions. Your intellect has built walls of self protection against all discovery and spontaneity, against freedom and understanding. The intellect will never find the answer. But if you allow yourself to inquire into why you are not startled by the thought that the thinker is sorrow, then you will break down the self enclosing walls. If you live with this dead numbness of the intellect and do not escape from it, then you will find that the rock against which you have been beating your head will melt away. You have become numb and you do not allow yourself to realize it, to feel it. And only when you are shaken by its reality, the reality of numbness, is that the beginning of the cessation of the thinker and his thought. Then only is there the in, then only is there the intimation of the eternal. So we will keep silence for 1 minute, and then I will make one comment. and then we will keep it open. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, I will make a comment. This is a very important topic. And it was this kind of topic about the thinker and the thought that made me very curious when I first time read Krishnamurti book, The Flight of the Eagle in 1972. And in that book, I read Krishnaji saying that the thought creates the thinker. The thinker means the I or me. And once this I or me is created, then it says, I like it, I don't like it. It tries to change the thought. So there is a duality between the thinker and the thought or thinking. And Krishnaji said that all our psychological problems arises because of this duality between the thinker and the thought. So when I read that, it was very new to me. That was in 1973. And I said, how can I verify what Krishnaji is saying? So if any person who wants to verify the truth that the thinker or the sense of I is coming from thinking, then one has to go right to the source from where thinking is arising. It means that if you are very curious, very attentive, and you gather all your energy and focus or turn the attention inward to look at the beginning of a thought. So when I tried to do that, my mind really stopped, and I found it was a very strange state when there is no thinking, there is no thinker, there is no sense of I, and then one can look, one can listen very, very clearly in that silence. So indirectly, Krishnaji is pointing out that one needs to be very silent and aware to look at what is happening within our mind. And when a person does that with all energy, curiosity, energy, attention, then something new happens in our life. And sometimes it seems that people are frightened of this state of silence. And it is frightening because it is like a psychological death. There is no sense of I or me. And so one wants to get away from it. And then we try to read Krishnamurti, think about it, or we do some other activity, watch video, and all. We try to escape from our own self. And as long as we use intellect to understand Krishnamurti, then it becomes very confusing and very difficult. So the whole thing is very simple, but the beginning itself, it requires the right way of looking, listening, and with all curiosity, attention. And this way of looking, because Krishnaji also says, how do you look at a tree or a human being, at a nature? And by asking such question, he is saying that it is possible to look at nature, at human beings, without thinking, without this sense of me, which isolates, which creates a division between me and you. So once I felt the real beauty of what Krishnaji is saying, then it became very, very interesting. And it really began to change my body and also my brain, and everything looked very fresh. And a kind of a new life started, and it continues day by day. And there is something great in what Krishnaji said about thinker and thought. So I have said enough. Now it is open to whoever wants to ask questions or want to make comment. Thank you. Dineshji, you can ask. You can unmute.
My voice is clear, sir?
Yes.
Are you able to?
Yes. Yes.
Sir, we have gone through this passage, and what I feel that only looking doesn't help. When you look, okay, the self is revealed. Here the self means the conditioning and the whatever wall he said or whatever it is. So thinker is revealed. But then once he is revealed, one has to work on it, isn't it?
Yes. What I mean by work means look. And how you look is very important. How you do anything. And so that's why Krishnaji says freedom is at the beginning. And when your looking is right, it reveals everything. We begin to learn about ourselves in a direct way, not through Krishnamurti books, but by looking. So when anger is arising, we can see the anger is arising. We don't need to go to the book because the book is within us. As Krishnaji says, the whole library and laboratory is within us. So how we look, that the first step is very, very important. Yeah.
And the second step, as he said in this, gathering of wisdom on the way.
Yeah, it happens as a byproduct. Yes.
It is very interesting, sir. In this, I would also like to make some comments that here, if we go deep and see this passage, it is similar to the karma theory in the tradition. Whatever
Okay.
one is thinking, that is converted to his deeds. So doer and deed.
Okay.
So it is similar to what the karma theory in the tradition says. That is number one, point number one. Number two, it is also interesting.
No,
that he here-
let me respond to this first. Doer, you said the karma, but here Krishna ji eliminates this sense of I. In the real looking, there is there is nobody. It's just looking, and that is the real beauty of what Krishna ji is saying, because I have seen how Krishna ji looked, and my first meeting with him was completely non-verbal, and his eyes were completely open. And when I went close, my mind also stopped, and I also looked at him in the same way. And then I extended my hand, then he took my hand, and I did not say, hello, how are you, or anything. And I went away. But in that moment, when that right looking happens, when there is no sense of I or me, then there is a real beauty, clarity, love, happiness. All this quality exists when there is no sense of I. But when I comes, then it divides, it creates the wall. So that is what Krishnaji says is different, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand, sir, what you are saying.
Yeah.
But here, first he has to understand that doer and deed, they are the same. Once he understands intellectually that doer and deed are same, then only he will go for that silence and all other things, isn't it, sir?
No, that is not what Krishnaji says. Intellectually, first you understand and then try to do it. Probably that is not, because many people, when they were listening to Krishnaji, they were writing down, and Krishnaji said, don't write it down and then think about it and then understand it and then do it. No, he says, listen now, whatever he was saying. So that kind of listening Krishnaji demanded from his audience, that don't think, just perfectly listen. And in that listening, something new happens. I don't know, because what Krishnaji says is very difficult to do it. And normally people think a lot, they discuss a lot, but doing this is not through dialogue. One has to be alone and direct the attention inward, look what is happening without judging it, saying it good or bad. Yes, there are some people would like to ask.
Vijay Chhabra, sir, please.
Yeah, Vijay ji.
Chhabra,
Yes.
sir, please unmute and say.
So Chhabra ji, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay. I think now it's, yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, a couple of points when Dinesh ji was talking about karma, and we often tend to, slide into comparisons with whatever theoretical frameworks we know, we are familiar with. And there also, I think we are familiar with all that also in what we have heard, what hearsay in a way, or what we have, if I may say, without, it's just, this is my feeling, we've heard, we've probably not really studied. So, there it is more, you get a sense of fixed, some kind of theoretical framework, and there's a karma, and then there's a end product or a result. So, as you so shall you reap. So, sounds all fine, and probably it may have some relevance, but when you observe, when if you find yourself in this world and actually observing, it's all too dynamic. The feeling is it's all too dynamic, and thought is always jerky. It's always moves from known framework, also fragmentary. Even there, it's not. It doesn't expand wide enough to probably realize its limitation. So it just picks up something uh, and takes the part or the fragmentary fragment from the whole. It naturally happens, and maybe in functional areas it may also work. Because there it works and you move on. But uh, that this being dynamic, that means there are many factors all the time. There is movement. That means there's a movement actually, like thinking as a movement, and there's a flow, and that flow thought can never deal with. You want to just watch a river. With thinking, you can never deal with it. You can never capture it. It's so simple. It's so obvious. You can never capture it. It's impossible. But you can watch and be aware of if there is any interference of thought, or you are creating fragments. You are creating, that jerky behavior. The thought is doing it, mind is doing it. You can be aware of it. And if there is a little more awareness you happen to have, you can't even program it, plan it. See, there's just a flow. There's just a flow.
Right. Yes.
And that has its own impact. So there's this movement is what only looking, being of actual watching, and there also there are maybe levels and levels to it, or depth and depths to it, like there are depths and depths to our ignorance. So there are depths and depths to also looking, watching, listening. And if in any interaction, one can experiment. If one just listens, really listens, it's so effortless. If you effortlessly listen even to all the criticism, all that is coming your way, with all the, it can also happen in the family that somebody is very unhappy about something. If you really have, listen, you'll see whatever is meaningful, actually relevant for action will happen. Will do it, your. The rest will go, leave you. You have nothing to do there.
Right.
So that listening is doing the complete job.
Yes.
That there's no whatever is relevant stays, does it work, and the rest goes. So, and if there is any residue, listening was not there. That means thinking has interfered, has come in. So, and you can be again, it's dynamic. So again, see that, see the game, So it's probably life seems to be like that. There's a movement and there's a thinking interfering, and you become aware of it, but this becoming aware is also tricky. Now, just in one place, if I've got it correctly, saying to think is painful, and he's using to think to be aware almost as synonyms. Now, when if in the present, if one is thinking and not just transacting thoughts from somewhere, whether own experience or somebody's experience or read somewhere, but you're actually thinking in the now, in the sense you are applying your mind, looking at things, exploring, in all that, when you are raising a question and exploring, some thinking is involved there. But that thinking in the present, ing, is important. And there's also awareness. And so it may be just one movement. You may verbally call, thinking or becoming aware. You may use other words. But if there is that kind of dynamic intimacy with what is happening now, or what the mind is throwing up, and there's a question and the mind is responding to it, looking at it, it may be right, it may be wrong, but you're exploring, then there is a then there's no pain or effort there. But pain is there or effort is there when somewhere that result orientation comes in. The thought actually comes back in its original function, so to say, or primordial function of, always guarding, always creating a barrier, always, creating some kind of security wall around it. So then there is that, then it is the fear and the natural movement of, because protecting itself. It's because it is thinker and thought have are now aware there, as we very often are used to have grown up with and have taken for granted. Because when we hear thinker is the thought, whether the question is it really our reality? Do we really see it?
Right.
You know?
Yes.
That's very important to see.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. There are several people want to ask questions. Yes. Sushilji, please.
Ravi,
Ravi, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I do not have any experience of observing bodies and listening to anything. And while listening to K, I do have got an understanding that when you are attentive to his talk, and he initially take you to journey from this to that, and suddenly he put an statement, and what he said that when you listen to the whole thing and the statement works upon you, and I am not able to catch that thing because all the time I am putting an effort to observe what is, or listening, trying an effort to listen to that thing or to understand that thing. That effort of trying to listen, understand, or learn something has a motive that I have to get something from this talk, and that motive is stopping everything from that listening. While listening to a song, I do not have motive. I just go with the rhythm. I'm not able to get that song rhythm or motiveless, effortless listening to this talk. I think I'm making a mistake. Thank you.
Yes.
Shakti
Yes, you are
Kumar.
right.
Shakti Kumar.
Shakti ji.
हाँ जी
Yeah. Voice not
the
coming.
last voice not coming.
No.
It is
Now
coming.
breaking. It's breaking.
Breaking. Sorry, then I don't. Yeah, please. Yes.
Can I ask a question to Mr. Vijay?
You can, Shakti ji, you can write your comments so that others can read it, please.
Can I ask a question to Vijay, sir?
Yes, you can.
Sir, one side we are saying that things are very dynamic. We have to move and learn. And there is urgency of change. And there is psychological time is not acceptable. And in this, JK is saying, giving importance to the patients. So how do you look at this? He has stressed given a lot of stress on patients. Even he has gone to the extent that he has shown, he has told that one should have the patience, then only he can move it.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, what happens when one is impatient? Because that's where we become generally, there's a vibration within the body, there's nervousness, there's one is rushing. Because that state we probably know more, notice more, right? When there's impatience, when you're waiting for something and it's not coming, and so there's you're thinking of something else, jumping from one thing to other. I have to do a lot of other things, and I'm wasting my time. So this one is more aware of, or one experiences probably, because it's a problem. Like so what happens then? you know, it's a, does one become aware of it, or does one see that, you know, this is thinking only. One is trapped in thinking. So if one can, one becomes aware of it, even momentarily, you know, there's a certain, you know, you see, it's meaningless, you know, because you are imagining. The actuality is something else. So paying attention to actuality is always a challenge, and that's what takes you anywhere, if at all. It's the attention to actuality that, you know, that resolves, you know. Now, can one's, you know, there is that naturally this thinking, the time factor is greatly involved in that, this impatience that we are used to. This is how we mostly operate. But when you're not rushing, when I was talking about listening. If that kind of rushing is there, obviously one is not listening. One is only thinking. One is only, you know, creating defenses. If there is a criticism, you are creating defenses with, you know, there are certain reactions. You may not come out with them quickly, but they are all building up. But if you are really listening, you want to know, if you are interested in, you know, from where this is coming and what all is involved in what is being said, what all is involved, you want to see it, comprehend it fully. If you are really interested in it, you will listen. And that listening will naturally be only go hand in hand with patience. It only can happen when there's patience, you know. And if you are interested, this will bring about, you know, that I think that interest in something, like we were saying, when he listens to a song, you know, very naturally it happens, you know, not struggling. But when there is this motive, I want to get, he's very honestly saying that, you know, is struggling because he wants to get out of it, get out of the talk, or, you know, for some maybe sutras for himself, some understanding for himself, which intellectually he can frame and work on. So this is how we, you know, study, and students all go through that and want to know in nutshell what is being said, and, you know, what we can take home. Say, what do you take home? You know, so these are the phrases we use. That means we are there really fully. If you're just actually listening, it's revealing the self, revealing what the other person is actually saying, and from where, and what all is involved. So, and there the patience is part of it. Right?
Yes, I would say that patience means to slow down your mind, you know. And like Dinesh ji talks about tradition, in tradition it says that on one branch of a tree there are two birds. One bird is singing and the other bird is listening. So that listening bird, that bird is missing in, I think, when we are just talking and speaking, that kind of listening, bird awareness is not awakened, I think. And that's why Krishnaji says, awareness brings order. In this article, it says. So when that awareness is really awakened, we can see how this thinking is moving, and it moves in a beautiful way without creating loops and conflicts. So that awareness, the patience means to slow down and allow the awareness to flower. And then life becomes much interesting, enjoyable. And we can say that what Krishnaji says is true. Okay, I think some other people want to ask questions.
How do you look at this urgency of change?
Sir, YD Murthy, please.
YD Murthy, and then
Yeah.
then
May I
Rama
come in,
Rao,
sir?
then Anand Ramagoud, and then Pradeep Verma.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening to all. My views are like this. This appears to be a very complicated passage covering so many things In fact, if the title is also somewhat different. He is pride, etc.
Your voice is
Where
breaking.
is it okay, sir? Is my voice okay now?
Yes,
Hello?
it is okay, sir. Okay, sir, it is.
Yeah. So Krishnaji is talking about this how the fear arises, how pleasure arises, explained very nicely in his talks, and ultimately he takes us logically and rationally into how thought is a root fear. And there is some understanding there for people like us. But now he is telling to think itself is to be afraid. And when you are afraid, fear is definitely there. That itself is a bit different than what we know about fear and it arises. And the other thing is, he's talking about wisdom, he's talking about patience, he's talking about habits. So many things are combined in one. And also, one thing that struck me the most is, why do you think your thoughts? That is one thing he is saying. When you think your thoughts, that is resulting in creating a wall around you, and you are not able to have that freedom. So it appears to me what Krishnaji is pointing out is, instead of thinking your thoughts, why can't you be aware of your thoughts? How the thoughts are coming out and how to be aware of them in a choiceless awareness state. Perhaps that will help you to dissolve the wall that you have created around yourself. And also, finally, is telling you should be sensitive when you realize that you are the ignorance, or the sorrow, that should shock you. But if you are not shocked and say, okay, what next? Where shall I go? So he's again talking of patience and also having some silence to stay with the what you have, because that is a very uh, very strong statement which we never hear. Naturally, that will lead to understanding yourself. That's from my side. Thank you.
Anand Rama Rao first and then Anand.
Sir, sir, the question is like this. What is the connection or anatomy of this thinking and thoughtless state?
Harshad sir. Harshad sir, he has some question for
Yeah.
you.
Yes. So this is something one has to experiment with initially when one is alone. And the question is it possible to see the beginning of a thought? And when you try to really do it, at least when I did it, I find there nothing, as if thought is not coming, thinking is not coming. Generally, the way I look at it, like thinking is like a river which is flowing all the time. And then out of this river, there is a branch comes out, and that branch is called thinker. And then this thinker tries to change the course of that river, the thinking. And then there is a duality. So this is a kind of a metaphor, but when we really try to do it, and then the mind becomes very silent and aware. And that is the real beauty in looking at whatever is coming. And initially, when this awareness comes, thinking stops. But in the later stages, thinking can go on and the awareness can just look at it and it doesn't do anything with this thinking and the thinking moves straight. It doesn't create conflict. So there is a depth in this awareness. Initial awareness is something very new, but then when this awareness becomes your nature, then thinking can also happen without any difficulty, just like Krishnaji speaking from that state of awareness in which there is no sense of I or me, and everything is flowing naturally. Whatever Krishnaji says, it comes out perfectly, logically, but he is not trying to do that. He is not trying to speak, but speaking is happening. So, okay, I have said enough. Shakti Kumar or Anandji wants to say something.
Sir,
Anand.
Kumarji has asked something. Please reply that and then we'll go ahead. Sir, can you read it or I should read it for you?
Yeah, you can read. Yeah.
Okay.
That my question is left.
Not escaping seems to be crucial point. Not escaping from the numbness. Would Harshadji say something about not escaping? Not escaping from
Numbness.
what is numbness का हो गया sir. Not escaping
Yeah.
from what or not escaping from thought plus thinker.
Thought and thinker.
Yes. Yes. We are always escaping because we don't like to be alone and look. And so there is always internet is there or talking with somebody or reading a book and thinking about it or entertainment. So not escaping is the real thing. And then it means that we don't like to be in touch with our own self. But looking within can be the real source of learning and being free. But as long as we escape, we don't come in direct touch with ourselves. So I think that escaping is happening more and more in the modern world because we have so many things to do on internet and many interesting subjects, videos, articles to read. So we are escaping from ourselves. Okay. Anandji.
Anand sir.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, do I see, I call them, I label them as like as escapes, sir, but do I look at them as escapes or as a solution? My brain uses that, my intellect uses that, and they say that I've solved the problem. So when I say I've solved the problem, when do I say I escaped? I have escaped. That is the whole problem. I don't see because I'm not free. I talk about freedom, but am I really free is the question, sir. So most of the problems arise because I'm looking for a solution, and that's my conditioning. That's been taught to me from my early age. Problem even now, the problems are given to the students; they have to solve. So that is how I have been conditioned to look at life. But here I come across a person who says these are my escape, and all the time we are looking at these solutions as these problems as my solution. These escapes as my solution. So that is the most difficult aspect of it, sir. I mean, one has to seriously look at it. To be free, I mean, why would I want to be free? Also, I need to see. First of all, I'm an insensitive human being. I mean, I mean, there is, for example, I mean, to be free also, I mean, if I'm looking for freedom, there has to be some amount of discontent in me that is not there. I find solutions everywhere. I'm satisfied. I'm happy. So without the discontentment, which is the beginning of freedom, When I talk about freedom, it starts with that. If I'm insensitive, there's no freedom. Can I see that I'm a very insensitive human being? So talking about all the time, there's a motive to get away from it, which I saw my solution, sir. Over, sir. I think I'm repeating again. Yeah, over.
Pradeep Verma ji, please unmute and say. Pradeep Verma ji.
Yes, I think it is audible.
Yes,
I see this whole scenario going on right now in the present moment. You see, somebody asked some question. One conditioned self asked some question to Krishnamurti, right? Because of his conditioning, I say, definitely because he is a sufferer. And he can feel the rock inside, which is not able to tackle, right? So he asked a question to Krishnamurti. Then we are listening to it or reading it as a third party who is also conditioned. You see, so my conditioning is revealed at times if I'm aware that I'm revealing my conditioning, my past, my conclusions, my conceit, all those things. I can see why I'm recalling those things which are not absolutely right now. Nothing is there. I am recalling some conclusion that this is there, this was there. This is the same as that? So why these things are coming out of me? So this one has to be very careful exactly how, as a third party, there can be revelation. It can purify me also, but we are imagining. I'm imagining rather that fellow's question, Krishnamurti's answer as words, listening to it, and I'm recalling as answer something in me and presenting it to the crowd. So this is a complicated situation. There is no doubt about it. And then I will read out something out of this passage. To gather wisdom, one must set aside the end, the result. Patience is necessary. This point was also discussed at some length. Patience. I think Dinesh ji asked this question. Related to time, he says. But patience to me is be patient with the problem and yourself. Patient with that. Some sort of stillness. You see? So this is what patience, I take it as. If there is passive awareness, it helps to discover the contributing causes. Now, so this is a sort of suggestion I will say. Patience is necessary, not the greed of attaining a result. If there is passive awareness, it must be quite close to choiceless awareness, must be. I am only imagining right now. Patience is necessary. In passive awareness, it helps to discover the contributing causes that go to make up the self-enclosing walls. Now, this requires a lot of intelligence to decipher at this. You see, to see this, it helps to discover the contributing cause and effects. You see, causes of that. That is first thing. Who go to make up the self-enclosing walls. And of course, patience is then escape. Naturally, when I'm asking question, I'm fed up with myself as question. I want to escape from that associated suffering, escaping from that associated suffering, not being with the problem enough, and then asking someone. Definitely, he is not Krishnamurti, but if I go and some guru or something like that, that means that we are escaping and trying to find answer of that that problem from someone else as words. So these are the problems I see right now. What is happening? We all are imagining. I think it may not be taken as an insult, but I am imagining. I start imagining like this whenever I read these things. Is it not necessary to understand the thinker, the doer, the actor? So this is really ultimately what the mood message is, that you must know yourself. It comes back to that, and be with your problems with whatever resources you have. Give enough time to that. This is what I feel. Thank you very much.
Prasad sir, please unmute and say.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, as Mr. Murthy has said, the chapter is not very simple. It has depth and complication. We must remember the context in which K has made his observations. Why I'm saying it, there is a chapter on fear in urgency of change. There he deals with the topic in an entirely different manner. There he says there is measurement, there is comparison, which create a cavity, and the way out is to live with that cavity. Here, there is no reference at all to comparison or measurement and that aspect. Here, the point is, the questioner is a seeker of some seniority. That is, he has lived with the teaching for some time. And he comes to K and he says, sir, I am up against a wall. I am not able to make any progress. And most of us are in that situation actually. We are not able, we have traveled some distance, but we are not able to proceed further. So here, Krishnaji says, normally what we do is, we think there is some problem with our thoughts, and we keep on struggling with our approach to problems or to life, to thoughts. That is, we deal with the problem as a separate from us. But here, Krishnaji says the problem is with the thinker. The thinker is yourself. The problem is yourself. And lastly, he says, you are not realizing that you are the problem. And that is why you are up against the wall. The wall is yourself. That aspect we must notice and understand. Here he says the painter paints the picture, this picture of passing happiness, of sorrow, of confusion and all that. Who is the painter? The painter is the thinker. The thinker is creating all this problem, and the questioner is eager to transcend. For that, he says, you are not really shocked when I say the problem is yourself. If you are sensitive, you should be shocked. You are not shocked at all. You are just moving and you are saying, I want to reach the result. There he said, patience is required. You are not really understanding the problem. The problem is yourself. And here there is one complication. Normally, Krishnaji says, thinking is the root cause of our problems. Our thoughts are the root cause of our problems. Here he has gone one step further and he says, there is another state called thoughtlessness. There is thinking. Thinking is good, but it causes pain. To escape that pain, you get into the habit, into certain habits, into certain patterns. And those patterns are thoughtless. They are thoughtlessness. You are escaping from thought into thoughtlessness. So he says, and why do you do that? To think, feel, to become aware may lead to unknown depths. And the mind rebels against the unknown. So you seek refuge in the known. The known is some habits and some copying, some repetition. These are all the escapes: habit, copying, repetition, etc. And so this thoughtless state, if you have to understand that the thinker is the problem, that the thinker is escaping into thoughtlessness, from thinking to thoughtlessness, and the thoughtlessness you cannot transcend if you are impatient. You have to live with that numbness. That thoughtlessness is also numbness. Numbness means inactivity of the brain. It functions only in some grooves, in some patterns. And so that is the problem. You are escaping into grooves, into numbness. You have to live with that numbness. You have to face it. Like he said in the other chapter, I quoted in Urgency of Change and Fear. He said, you have to face that cavity. Here, he says you have to face that numbness. Then only you can transcend it. Thank you, sir.
Harshad sir,
Yes.
Shakti Kumar ji has sent one note.
The beginning of
and
the
which
cessation
reads,
of the thinker and his thought. The beginning of the cessation of the thinker and his thought. Somebody, Shakti Kumar wants explanation of this.
Sir, Harshad sir, and the next sentence of it is that then only is there the intimation of the eternal.
Thank
the
you.
last end of the chapter. Sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last lines of that. Please explain them. Further elaborate them.
The intimation of the eternal.
It is the last sentence, but
so
he has said the cessation of thinker and the thought.
Cessation of thinker and thought.
Yeah, right. Yes.
First, please read them and explain.
Yeah.
At least one person should read that very clearly.
And then answer.
Then only he can answer. Two persons are telling what he has.
Harshad Parekh will himself read it. Verma ji.
Yeah.
Problem
the last line.
Let him read. Now two persons are telling that.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. You are the third one to say so.
No, but this is very funny. We are complicating.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. I like to say that Krishnaji is using many words to indicate something non-verbal. And as long as we are living in words, in thinking, it is very difficult we can explain Krishnaji means like this or that, but one has to experiment with one's own life and really see the beauty, non-verbal beauty. And once a person is able to look at a tree or a nature, without this thinking, a person will really feel so much extraordinary beauty exists around us and in everything around us. But if we are using our intellect to understand or explain what Krishnamurti is saying, we are living only on the surface. One has to, that patience or slow down, become silent, and then also be aware. In that silent awareness, there is extraordinary beauty and what Krishnaji calls this intimation of the eternal. It is in that, and Krishnaji used many words to describe something which cannot be described. So Krishnaji is using many, many words to explain which comes to him naturally. But when we try to analyze Krishnamurti, I think we are losing the essence. So I would say that forget everything what Krishnamurti has said, be alone, turn the attention inward and see and find out for yourself whether there is a deep change or transformation happening in your own body and brain. And then you can talk about Krishnamurti, but explaining Krishnamurti, he has used enough words and we must not get lost in the words. The real beauty is non-verbal. Okay, I have finished.
Pasha, you wanted to give your view first and then Dinesh. Pasha, please unmute. Unable, you are unable to mute. Sir, can you help him?
Sir, just now I have unmuted, sir.
Okay.
Here, cessation of thinker and thought means what I feel is that here cessation means putting thinker and thought in its right place. I feel, sir. Why? Because in real life, thinker and thought are very useful, no, sir, for doing real life things. But to know their right place and keeping them in the right place for me is cessation, I think, sir. Thank you.
Anand sir, you wanted to add something?
Yes, sir. I mean, so when we talk about thought and thinker and things like that, what case is we need to go beyond the words. We are caught in the words, as Harshadji also said. What K has said, sir, you cannot live without dying. Now, that is a very profound statement. How do I understand that? We use words like we have to go beyond thought and this and that. But how do I understand you cannot live without dying? That is dying psychologically every minute. That is what is very essential for us to understand. And this is not to be understood intellectually. The moment immediately I try to rationalize it, reason it out, and I think I want to find out what it is. That's where I move away from it. Now here he speaks to live completely every day, which is again due. Every day I look at from the old, from my past, from my memories. There's no dying to the everything what I see every day. So that is very essential because otherwise I become very mechanical. And also he says it's only when you only when you die then you know what love is. Love is to die. Otherwise, I put the other way around. Love is to die, but I'm not willing to die. That gives me the most pleasure on this earth. Look at my own contradictions or dichotomy. I don't want it. At the same time, that is what it is what I am. The me is associated with my body. So that is really very challenging. So when we say Krishnamurti said one feels this and the other feels that, I need to understand from what context he's saying. Otherwise, we say he is all the time, I mean, he says something now and he says exactly the opposite some other time. But I need to understand from where it is coming from. The moment I say, I mean, he does contradict, then it becomes a huge challenge. I'm not listening to what he's saying. He says to go beyond the word, but I'm stuck with words. Over, sir. That's about all.
Yeah.
Parekh sir, you
Yes.
wanted to comment on this, please?
Yes. Here in this article also, and I also feel that the intellect, just thinking, is not sufficient to feel the real beauty, love, psychological depth, all that exists in non-verbal state. So as long as a person has not felt in his life the beauty of silence and looking and with full awareness, then only piling up more and more words and more ideas. So again and again, I would say that one has, when a person asks a question, he is asking the question to himself. And if that question is very, very, very important, then that person will begin to come to that state of looking without thinking. So there is nothing much in explanation and asking questions, but what happens after one asks a question, that is important. Yes. Okay, I finish.
Dinesh, you wanted to add something? Dinesh, please unmute and say if you wanted to.
No, I just wanted to ask Harshad sir, how do you look this urgency of change versus patience?
Oh,
He has put this question also.
Yeah. Urgency of change and patience. Only, yes, patience is fundamental thing. And urgency of change, Krishnaji is using that phrase only for the beginning, because we live our life very habitual way, doing everything. And for that, maybe he is saying that there must be a different way of living. And also he says that understanding is not premeditated. It comes to you when you are really listening or looking at yourself or listening to Krishnamurti or observing nature. Something happens to you, not through thinking, but it happens. So you cannot go after it, but when the right condition, that means the patience is there, alertness is there, looking, then something new happens, then only you will know that something new has happened. And you can tell other people that something new happened to you, but it will not mean anything to the other people. So the whole thing is experience. One has to do it, experiment with oneself in silence, with alert curiosity, honesty. And in that is the first step. And if that step is the right step, something new can happen. If the first step is just asking question and thinking, then it's finished. Then one lives in that mode, the plane of thinking, but one needs to come out from the plane of thinking and then look at thinking clearly. As long as that has not happened, then everything will be just verbal. Okay, I finish.
Rama Rao, please unmute and say.
Sir, I could see when I present, the patience is not there. The only tenderness is there.
Yeah, yes.
That much I want to submit.
Anand sir.
So, yes, sir. So when I say the urgency of change, do I really want that, sir? Is there any urgency in my life? I talked about it, but is there any urgency? Krishnamurti has said, many other people have said, every action of mine impacts this world, this planet. What is happening right now? Hundreds of people are being killed. How do I understand I am responsible for that? We say war should not be this, but can I see I am responsible for the war? Do I see that? Am I sensitive enough to look at all these things and then say there's an urgency for change? I don't want to see. I don't want. I'm not in any urgency. Can I look at that? What is the essential? So many right now, as we are talking, people are being killed. Do I care about them? So I need to look at. I mean, again, I need to see that what kind of an insensitive human being I am. Do I call myself insensitive? No, I don't say that. But someone comes along and says, your action is causing this. Every day, so many millions, hundreds of people are being killed. Over, sir.
Yeah.
Waghmare,
okay.
Waghmare, please finish within 2 minutes. So the.
No, I just last question to Mr. Pradeep Verma. You were saying that when we read one passage, we should discuss on that, and we are also talking about other things. I wanted to ask, what is the holistic view? You said that we were discussing on other aspects also.
I don't remember that.
Okay, then. Okay,
that is
right.
No, but still he was trying to say something. Let him finish.
That is the right approach. That I do not anything. I don't know anything.
Wanted to say something.
Out of context. Now I can only say.
Please come forward and say. Please come forward and say. 3 minutes are still left.
I only say it's out of context. Out of context.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Parekh sir, Parekh sir, would you please give last comment and so that we can wind it up?
Yes. Like when Anandji says that, do I see that I am responsible for the war? Then what is that I? Is it a thinking I which says I am responsible, or one really feels it and without I? So when we ask a question like do I see it? What is that I which wants to see it? Is it again thinking, or one has come to a silent way of looking? Okay, so this is the real, this is the real question.
We are looking
Thank
in the
you very
meeting,
much,
sir. Actually, the word responsibility also means freedom. It also means love. It's only when I'm responsible there is freedom, sir. So can I look at that is the question. I'm not saying it is or it is not. Can I look at it? Can I see that I'm an insensitive human being? Can I look at that? That's all I'm saying. And somebody says, I'm responsible for the war. Whatever is happening on this planet, my eating habits are also causing violence on this earth. Every action of mine is causing, it's damaging the planet. Scientists are also saying that, not only me. Every action of ours, every day 100 to 200 species are being wiped out from this planet because of my actions, or our actions. Your actions are my actions. Do I see that is the question, sir? Am I sensitive enough to see that? That's all. It's a question mark, sir. It's a question mark. That's about all.
With love,
I'm putting it as a
I wanted
question.
to end it here. With love, I wanted to end it here. Thank you very
Yes,
much
sir.
to everybody.
Thank you for all for participation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
you.
sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Modak sir, please.